Hello everyone, I am Dr. Parul Malhotra, Associate Professor, Jagannath University, Jaipur, Rajasthan. In continuation with the earlier video, I'll be continuing with the unit forward and we'll continue where I left, that was indicators of development. So these all are the indicators of development. The first is the GDP or GNP, that is gross domestic product or gross national product. This is the economic indicator of development. Then we have the other four indicators of development, and they are called as the social indicators of development. And they are Human Development Index, Happiness Index, communication as one of the indicators, and human rights as an indicator. So these all five are together called as the indicators of development. That is the degree or the percentage or the rank of these indicators tells whether a country falls under a developed category, underdeveloped category, or a developing category. So the first indicator is GDP and GNP. GDP is the gross domestic product. The gross domestic product is one of the primary indicators used to gauge the health of country's economy, economic production and growth. What GDP represents has a large impact of nearly everyone within that economy. When the economy is healthy, you will typically see low unemployment and wage increases as businesses demand labor to meet the growing economy. A significant change in GDP, whether up or down, usually has a significant impact on the stock market. It is not hard to understand why a bad economy usually means lower profits for companies, which in turn means lower stock prices. How the GDP is calculated? GDP is calculated, that is the private consumption plus gross investment plus gross spending plus exports minus imports. Consumption is normally the largest GDP component, consisting of the private household expenditure in the economy. Then comes the investment. It includes business investment in plant, equipment, inventory, and structures, and does not include exchanges of existing assets. Government spending. It is the sum of government expenditures on final goods and services. Exports. Exports represents gross exports. Imports represents gross imports. Domestic means that GDP measures production that takes place within the country's borders. Now let us come to what is gross national product. Uh, this is to estimate total economic activity in a country or region, including gross domestic product GDP, gross national product GNP. All are concerned with counting the total amount of goods and services produced within some boundary. Domestic means the boundary is geographical. We are counting all goods and services produced within the country's borders, regardless by whom. National means the boundary defined by citizenship, nationality. We count all goods and services produced by the nationals of the country or businesses owned by them, regardless of where that production physically takes place. Now let us look at what is the difference between GDP and GNP. GDP can be contrasted with gross national product. The difference is that GDP defines its scope according to location, while GNP defines its scope according to ownership. GDP is a product produced within a country's borders. GNP is a product produced by enterprises owned by a country's citizens. The two would be the same if all the productive enterprise in a country were owned by its citizens. Production within a country's borders, but by an enterprise owned by somebody outside the country, counts as part of its GDP but not its GNP. On the other hand, production by an enterprise located outside the country but owned by one of its citizens counts as part of its GNP but not its GDP. To take the United States as an example, the US GDP is the value of output produced by American owned firms regardless of where the firms are located. Right. Now let us come at Human Development Index. Human Development Index is the most recent index of development. It is in the use since 1990s. Three factors included in it are longevity, that is life expectancy at birth. Second, educational attainment. Third, standard of living. Fourth, educational attainment. It includes adult literacy as well as combined primary, secondary and tertiary enrollment ratio. Standard of living means a proxy measure of satisfaction derived from a bundle of basic goods and services. It is assumed to reflect employment levels of people. Next is Human Development Index. The Human Development Index (HDI) is a composite statistics of life expectancy, education, and income indices to rank countries into 4 tiers of human development. It was created by economist Mehboob ul Haq, followed by economist Amartya Sen in 1990, and published by the United Nations Development Programme. It is a composite statistic need to rank countries by level of human development and separate developed high development, developing middle development, and underdeveloped low development countries. Human development aims to expand people's capabilities. People are both the beneficiaries and the agents of long-term development. As per the report of UNDP, that is United Nations Development Programs, released in October 2011, HDI of India improved through the last decade. It increased by 21% from 0.387 in 1990-2000 to 0.467 in 2007-2008. Also, the difference and inequality between different states reduced. It indicates towards improvement in education but a downfall in nutrition and sanitation. Gujarat ranks highest in per capita income as well as child malnutrition. Overall, India ranks 134 out of 187 countries on HDI in 2011 as compared to 119th rank out of 169 countries in 2010. Students, you can check India's rank as per the year 2022. And I would also say you to check the Human Development Index as well as the other indexes that are mentioned in this video, right? Okay. Now let us talk about the next index, that is Happiness Index. The happiness index measures life satisfaction, the feeling of happiness, and other happiness domains, psychological well-being, health, time balance, community, social support, education, art and culture, environment, governance, material well-being, and work. The qualities measured in the domain of happiness are as follows. Psychological well-being, that is optimism, sense of purpose and accomplishment. Next is health, energy level and ability to perform everyday activities. Third is time balance, that is enjoyment, feeling rushed, and sense of leisure. Community, sense of belongingness, volunteerism, and sense of safety. Social support, satisfaction with friends and family, feeling loved and feeling lonely. Education, art, and culture. Access to cultural and educational events and diversity. Environment, access to nature, pollution, and conservation. Governance, trust in government, sense of corruption, and competency. Material well being, financial security, and meeting basic needs. And last is work, compensation, autonomy, and productivity. Importance and the use of happiness index. Happiness index is a tool to access, understand, and enhance individuals' happiness, community well-being, social justice, economic equality, and environmental sustainability. Happiness index helps to promote social change. Happiness Index provides necessary data to the researchers and policymakers to plan for the well-being and happiness of the citizens. Now let us understand the difference between HDI and Happiness Index. Human Development Index is a conceptual approach that does not capture the contentment or psychological state of individuals. Using the human development lens and matrix can help assess whether genuine progress has occurred or if subjective well-being has increased. On the other hand, happiness index is subjective well-being, an empirical one that captures the contentment or psychological state of individual. If the partial matrix of human development index If the partial metrics of human development indicates that the progress has happened, using the subjective well-being lens and matrix can assist determine if progress has occurred. Human development indicators are objective indicators. Human development is simply an increase in income and riches. The theories of human capital reproduction and human resource development are found to be inadequate by human development because they see human beings primarily as means rather than purposes. The indicators in the happiness index are a combination of subjective and objective evaluations of people's perception. It is a method of assessing progress that takes into account numerous dimensions and non-monetary indicators of happiness, emphasizes the value of freedom and opportunity, and understands that people translate their skills into happiness at varying rates. I hope you are clear with what is the difference between HDI and happiness index. Now let us look at communication as an indicator. Communication is sharing of knowledge, information, and experience. It makes people understand, persuade, convert, or control one another. It is a two-way process. Communication is an essential element of life. It begins with the birth of a man and ends with his death. It is an ongoing process and is forever in motion. For the sake of convenience, we may talk about communication elements such as source, context, and messages as if they were static and discrete elements existing apart from their role in the total act of communication. But this is simply a method for explaining and illustrating the various elements. Basically, communication is a continuous, dynamic, circular, and unrepeatable, irreversible, and a complex process. All the activities of not only world life but also of society and country depend upon communication. So, if used constructively, communication can play a major role in various development activities. It is an important element in the matrix of influences, which leads to the innovation and modernization of society. It can help to create an environment favorable for change and development. Communication can help people to face problems on an individual basis and also on collective basis on various fronts. Without communication, the development and progress would go unnoticed as it is only that spreads the news from one region to another. Countries' development can be speeded up by the introduction of communication media. As the technology of communication becomes more advanced, we are still going to witness more revolution in the way people communicate with each other and develop positive and creative change in thinking on development. Communication for development refers to a strategy process that promotes social changes through dialogue, knowledge sharing, and participation, is dependent on a free flow of communication. Development oriented themes such as family planning, adult education, primary health care, etc., can be spread to people much faster through communication. People's feedback on developmental programs can be passed to the policymakers only through communication. Communication is an indicator of development for the future, since people come to know about the event in advance. That may happen only through communication. A country can never attain modernity without the infusion of mass media. Wilbur Schramm refers mass media as magic multipliers as they multiply the information. A country with lesser infrastructure of communication has lesser chances of development as compared to the one having more communication technologies. The communication made by the government to its people is also very significant for the process of development of a particular country. For example, 5-year plans have different mandate through which they seek development. Other international bodies like UNICEF, UNESCO are also making efforts to reduce the communication gap. Now let us understand the last indicator, that is human rights as an indicator. Human rights such as right to freedom of speech, freedom to practice any religion, right to education, right to food, right to maternal health, and few other rights are known as human rights. In few societies, land acquisition is also a debatable topic. Land rights are not properly addressed. Gender rights in the form of freedom, equality should also be maintained in a society, as in Islam. Women property rights, child labor rights are also given. Human rights are the real indicators of development of human beings. Their food, life, safe water, sanitation, employment, peaceful environment, etc. By following these rights properly, poverty can also be alleviated. Human rights as an indicator. Human rights are the natural rights of all human beings, irrespective of their birth, religion, and gender. Efforts are made all over the world to take adequate measures for the promotion and protection of human rights. It is only through communication that people become aware and educated about their rights, which they can exercise or have been granted to them. The United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights on 10th December 1948, according to which all men and women are entitled to civil, political, economic, social, cultural rights and freedom for the people of the world. According to this, all men and women are entitled to civil, political, economic, social, cultural rights and freedom for the people of the world. The preamble, an introduction or preface to the Constitution, fundamental rights, and directive principles, guidelines for framing of laws, which together have been described as forming the core of the Constitution, reflect the basic principles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Every development program should incorporate an aspect on human rights. Communicators must shoulder the responsibility of educating various target groups on how to respect and exercise human rights. This requires democratization of communication, which means an access to all existing media to the masses for sharing information and the facts related to human rights without any discrimination. Without freedom, other human rights cannot be exercised effectively, either within national borders or within the world community. The expansion of human rights therefore depends largely on the success of expanding the flow of information everywhere. So I hope you have all understood the concept of indicators of development. After going this video, I ask you to make a chart. I just want you to make a chart and you just note down the GDP, GNP, Human Development Index and Happiness Index of any developed country, any developing country and any underdeveloped country, and also study about the growth of the communication in that particular country, that is the growth of ICT in that particular country, and how the human rights are being practiced and how the whether the people are aware about their human rights or not. You will clearly understand the difference between the scenario of a developed, underdeveloped and a developing country, and hence you will be clear about the concept of the indicators of development. So thank you for today.